and welcome to 𝗩𝗲𝗋◄◄plants.com, where we teach you all about gardening in the great indoors. If you'd like to support our show, please use our Amazon affiliate link below. Today we have a plant care video for Cobweb Spiderwort, botanically known as Tradescantia sillamontana. This is a beautiful trailing plant with gray-green leaves that often have a purple sheen on the underside of the leaves and along the stem, as you can see here. So really nice color combination. The plant gets its common name from the fact that the leaves are covered in cobweb-like hairs. So you can see like a kind of a hairy look going on to the plant. And the more hairs, the happier the plant is. Other common names for this plant include 𝗥𝗲𝗹𝘁𝗂𝗰𝘁𝘀 plant and white velvet wandering Jew. Cobweb spiderwort is native to the dry regions in the mountains of Nuevo Leon in northern Mexico. In its native habitat, the plant blooms in summer with hot pink flowers at the end of each stem, as you can see in this photo. It generally doesn't bloom indoors, but you never know. If you give it a really good bright light, that could actually happen. The plant makes a great hanging basket plant and trailing plant as well once it begins to mature. When young, it will grow upright, but then as it matures, it will grow longer stems like this one that are really nice trailing, as mentioned, so they do look really pretty when hanging down from somewhere. And it will eventually vine 12 to 18 inches long. If you do want to grow it upright, if you prefer it growing upright, you can prune it back when it's young. So pinch back to a stem node, which would be right underneath where a leaf meets the stem. And that's what you would want to do to get it to then to have more growth at that point. Or just let it trail like this beauty, which is a little bit more along the lines of its natural growing habit, but it's up to you. You can do both. Either or, I should say, rather than both. Okay, so lighting for this beauty, how to keep this plant healthy and happy. Lighting is one of the really important things to keep in mind. For best cobwebbing and coloration, grow Tradescantia sillamontana in bright light, such as 2 to 3 feet from a southern window. The plant also does well in front of an eastern window. Avoid northern windows as they tend to not give the plant enough light, and western windows tend to get pretty hot at the end of the day. So if you do have them near one of those, do the same as you would with a southern window and put it 2 to 3 feet away. These plants also do really well under full spectrum lighting, which should be used if the light levels in your home are low and during lower light times of the year, such as the winter months. So give it some supplemental lighting in the winter months if you're feeling like it's not getting enough light to get it through to when we get longer days at other times of the year, longer, brighter days at other times of the year. Rotate this plant regularly as it has a tendency to only grow on one side if you don't. So do rotate it so you're going to get some good growth all the way around. You can rotate about a 1/4 turn of the pot every time you water, an 1/8 to a 1/4 turn every time you water. Okay, speaking of watering, Tradescantia sillamontana comes from an arid area of Mexico, and this species tends to do best indoors on the dry side. So avoid over-watering this plant, as that will quickly lead to root rot. Water when the soil throughout the plant is nearly dry. The top inch should be dry, and then the moisture meter should read at the 4 and almost on the 3. So that's a good indicator when you insert it 2/3 of the way into the pot. So the top inch dry, and then insert the moisture meter about 2/3 of the way into the pot, and it should read at 4 when you're going to water. If it reads higher than that, do not water. You want it really to be close to the 3 at that point. And even if you get to the 3, it's okay. You're much better off underwatering this plant rather than overwatering it, because overwatering will quickly, as mentioned, lead to root rot. Pull back on watering even more in the winter months when the plant will be cycling water much more slowly. Fertilizing this beauty. Fertilize Tradescantia sillamontana spring through fall with an organic fertilizer. Chemical fertilizers are way too harsh for this plant and many houseplants, and I generally don't recommend them. They can cause crispy leaf edges on this plant and a leaf drop, browning leaves. The plant just really won't be that happy with you if you use harsh chemical fertilizers on it. And remembering, out in nature, plants don't get chemical fertilizers. They get natural fertilizers. And by natural fertilizers, they get what they get is nutrients from plants around them breaking down and that sort of thing. So that's why organics are so much better for your houseplants, because as I always mention, you want to treat your houseplants. You are father or mother nature for your houseplants, so you want to treat them as such. Okay, so humidity for cobweb spiderwort. Because the plant comes from a dry area of Mexico, as mentioned, it does not require much humidity. And that's a good news most of the time, because a lot of times one of the struggles with growing houseplants is getting enough humidity for certain houseplants. So most average humidity levels in homes of 40 to 50% are perfectly fine for this lovely houseplant. Okay, so temperature for cobweb spiderwort. It can tolerate temperatures as low as 55 degrees Fahrenheit and as high as 80 to 85 degrees Fahrenheit. So it's a pretty wide range. It can even tolerate draftier areas in your home. So once again, really good news, makes it a lot easier to grow this houseplant. You can grow it in maybe areas of the home where you can't or aren't able to grow other houseplants as successfully. Okay, repotting cobweb spiderwort. It does well when it's root bound, meaning it's tight in its pot. So avoid repotting this plant too early. My usual rule of thumb is 2/3, 1/3. So you have 2/3 foliage to 1/3 pot. This is a catch pot here. It is in a smaller pot inside this that isn't as decorative as this outer one. So right now it's a really good combo of 2/3 plant to 1/3 pot. But when it does get to more like 3/4 plant to 1/4 pot, at that point I will repot it. And I will only go up 1 pot size maximum. And you want to repot spring through midsummer to late summer. Late summer is okay if you're in an area of the country where it doesn't get really cold like right away in September, or wherever you are in the world. Use a high quality organic potting soil with added drainage such as pumice or perlite. I'll put a link below for my pumice product, and I will put a link below for any other videos that are applicable to this video as well. So good fast drainage, that's what it gets in its native habitat. Pruning for this beauty. You'll need to remove dead foliage on this plant on a fairly regular basis, and it tends to clump up around the stem. I'm showing you a photo now of this plant before I did a recent little pruning on it. So those the leaves will die off, and they do look kind of funky, as you can see. So the way you want to prune it off, it's best to do with sharp scissors, or basically sharp scissors. There's garden scissors, garden shears are fine. Cut right near the stem, but don't cut in. Be careful, real careful to cut that you don't cut into the stem, because that obviously is going to damage the stem. So it takes a little bit of precision, but do cut them off. It's good to cut them off because, well, for one thing, as you saw, they don't look too good. And for another, they will attract pests. So do try to keep the plant cleaned up as much as possible. If you want the plant to be bushier, begin pinching off growing tips to a stem node when the plant is young. So as mentioned earlier about that stem node being, and a stem node is also a leaf node, so you would prune to right underneath where this leaf attaches. So that is something that you can also keep in mind. When you do that, however, avoid cutting off more than 1/3 of the plant when you do at a time. Wait a couple weeks or a month or so before, and sometime or even longer, and then go back and prune some more. This plant can get leggy, as you can see, so it just depends on how you like it. If you don't like leggy plants, then do some pruning. It'll be fine if you do. If you do like leggy plants, then hanging plants, then go with it like this plant. Pests and diseases. Root rot can occur if you overwater, as I've mentioned. Other than that, it tends to be pretty pest-free, which is another great thing about this plant. Another thing that makes it really easy to grow, really easy and fun to grow, because it's a lot funner when you don't have to worry about a lot of these little things, right? So there you go. Okay, so that tells you all about how to keep this beautiful cobweb spiderwort happy and healthy in your indoor garden. Thank you for stopping by today. Please leave any comments about any indoor gardening tutorials you'd like to see. Remember to like, comment, subscribe, and share this video. And please check the bell if you'd like to be notified when new videos are released.